You're listening to the Heart of Giving podcast with Art Taylor, powered by bbbgive.org. Here we explore the motivations that form the basis of giving and service. We inspire generosity and celebrate the transformative effects that giving and service have on the human spirit and on community. The conversations featured on the podcast also uncover giving strategies that educate and provide tools to help listeners make impactful gifts of both their time and money. We hope you enjoy this episode.
This is the Heart of Giving podcast, powered by bbbgive.org. Give.org is the nation's standards-based charity evaluator, and it's your one-stop source for information on giving and reports on the most asked about charities. I'm Art Taylor. Today, my guest is Federica Convit, who is the executive director of the Jacinto Convit World Organization. And Anna is going to tell us all about the amazing work going on there and about her life and how she became aligned with this organization and why. Anna, thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Hi, Art. It is such a pleasure to be here again with you, but now on your podcast. I'm very honored with this invitation, and I'm very happy to share my experience and the amazing work that we're doing here in Venezuela, in part, but also, for the world.
Well, Anna, tell us about the mission of the Jacinto Convit World Organization.
Our mission is to provide access to modern diagnostics and innovative treatments, mainly in cancer, to benefit the most vulnerable population, starting in Venezuela, which is a poor developing country, mainly.
I see. And now this organization has been around for a while. I think it was founded by a family member of yours.
Well, this organization was founded after we founded Fundación Jacinto Convit, which is our sister organization based in Caracas, Venezuela. And JCWO was founded in 2014, and Jacinto Convit organization was founded in 2012 to continue basically the legacy of my grandfather, Dr. Jacinto Convit, who is a world-renowned physician, humanist, and scientist who did amazing work for in endemic diseases. He lived for 100 years, and throughout his entire life, all he did was to favor the neediest of the patients around the world that suffer from leprosy, leishmaniasis, and other dermatological diseases. During his last years of life, he wanted to also benefit patients with cancer. So he thought that he would invest his time in a disease that was so affecting so many people around the world. And so he decided to take his experience and his knowledge to focus on cancer and in breast cancer. And that's when he designed and proposed an immunotherapy, a personalized immunotherapy to treat breast cancer. And that is the work that we are focusing on through JCWO. Nowadays, we continue to develop this immunotherapy, and we are now preparing everything to start the first clinical trial, which is going to be a phase 1b2 trial that will be tested on 40 women with metastatic breast cancer. We are very excited and looking forward to this huge step.
So how long has it taken you to get to this point, to where you're ready now to start trials?
Many years, Art. Dr. Convit died in 2014, and we began to bring efforts together, to bring people together, to organize all the work to continue his legacy we started in 2010. That's when I actually came back from the States. I studied and I worked for many years in the States, and I decided to go back to Venezuela to support him, to help him. He was already 90 something years. So, and he was still working. He never wanted to retire because he thought that that was the end of, of life, to retire. So he worked until his very last day. So I returned back to Venezuela. I made that decision, and I always wanted to give back to my country. Always wanted to work, do public service, and but my biggest concern was really him. I needed to be by his side, help him with this huge project that he had in cancer, do anything that I could do just to help him, right? So I returned in 2010, and that's when we started coordinating efforts to continue this work that he was doing in cancer. So it's been 14 years that I've personally been involved in the development of this project, and in order to finally start the clinical trials, with this first phase 1b2, which will evaluate the safety of the immunotherapy, and also it will evaluate efficacy, a preliminary efficacy of this immunotherapy, which is personalized because it combines the patient's tumor cells with two other components. And this immunotherapy is what it does is that it stimulates the immune system of the patient to target those cancer cells, and in order for the immune system to destroy the cancer cells, with very little or none side effects, because we did all the preclinical studies in bulb C mice, okay, in animal models, especially bulb C mice, and we observed that there were really almost no side effects, okay? So we believe that this is a potentially safe and an effective treatment. That is what we saw in animal models, and that is what we expect in patients. We are now raising funds in order to set up a vaccine manufacturing plant where we are going to prepare the immunotherapy under good manufacturing practices. So this plant has to be certified under good manufacturing practices in order for us to begin the trial. But all the permits that are given by the regulatory entities, we are ready with that. We have all the permits, and now we just need to finish setting up the plant, get the green light from the regulatory entity once they evaluate the plant, and then we can start with the recruiting patients and all the process.
Ana, what made you think that you were ready to get back to Venezuela to work alongside your grandfather?
I believe that after working for almost a decade in the US, that experience really exposed me to different industries. It exposed me to different types of people, different backgrounds, a multicultural environment. It made me a sufficient and efficient, independent person. It made me strong, and it helped me to believe that I could make my dreams come true, no matter the size, no matter how difficult. And it also reminded me how much I love Venezuela and how much I want to give back to Venezuela. And also how much I love my grandparents and my grandfather, who was really, I believe it was what truly called me back. I mean, I had an inner voice that told me constantly and every day it was stronger and stronger, that inner voice that said, you have to go back. You have to go back and you have to help him and you have to give back and you have to work for Venezuela, for the Venezuelan people, and you have to go there and help. And that was such a strong inner voice in me, Art, that it got to a point where I said, I mean, it took a while for me to really think through this and make the decision, but it was a stronger and a stronger feeling, to the point where I said, I have to go talk to my boss and say, this is the time where now I need to go back. And my heart was there. And I always thought that I could do something big. And my grandfather, I think, was that kind of person for sure. He never thought that any obstacle would stop him. Actually, he always said, I will never take a no. I don't take no's as an answer. I will never take a no for any disease. Every disease has a solution. So we have to be persistent. And he said, stubborn. I'm a very stubborn person. I will not take a no for an answer. So I think he was a big dreamer as well. He never, adversities were not something that were going to stop him. So I believe that I am also that kind of person. I think I learned that from him. And he inspires me every day, his philosophy, his values. So after having all that experience in the US, building that skill set, having studied in the US, becoming an independent person, a strong person, then I said, I thought that it was the right time to go back. And that was definitely going to help me, that passion, that strength, that experience, the exposure that I had abroad.
Wonderful. And now you were in banking, and so you could have had a very prosperous career in the financial industry. And we know that many people come away quite wealthy and financially secure doing that, and also fulfilled. And yet you were driven back to Venezuela. And I think that's really something to hold up, because obviously when you're passionate about something, as people say, you never work a day in your life. And I can hear in your voice just how much you mean to this work and how much this work means to you. So good luck with what you're doing. Now, as far as, I'm really fascinated about the work, but also your grandfather, because I listen to lots of shows and podcasts, and obviously there's so many nonprofit organizations in the United States that are doing great work. And this show was really about finding stories that others can see themselves in. And I know that there are many of us who have had ancestors or people who came before us that have inspired us in different ways to do the work that we're doing, whether that be for social good or for personal gain. In this case, it's very clear to me that your grandfather meant so much. Did you spend a lot of time with him? At what moment did you look up and you said to yourself, I need to really pay attention to what my grandfather's doing? Did he bring you into his presence? What was your relationship with your grandfather as you were growing up?
It was the most special, um, fulfilling relationship. I felt that it was unconditional love, right? Um, he was always extremely supportive, and he was always insisting on my education. He gave a lot of importance to having a good education, studying, preparing yourself, doing the good things. And I was very tight with him since I was little, since I was born. I was very tight with him and my grandmother. So I spent a lot of time with him growing up, Art. Okay. I spent a lot of time with him in Venezuela. I actually used to go to his lab. I thought it was so interesting. I mean, I was so curious to know what he was doing because when I was little, I mean, in 1980 is when he published the work on the leprosy vaccine. And he then, won all these international prizes like the Prince of Asturias. And, he was nominated to the Nobel Prize. And I mean, this was a world renowned scientist. And he was my grandfather. But I never saw him just like the world renowned scientist. He was my grandfather, my ally, my friend, and somebody who loved me unconditionally and who spent time with me. I mean, he was so busy, and I still don't understand how he always had time every day to spend that time with his family and with his grandchildren. I still don't understand how he administered so well his time. And that is something that I have not been able to answer. Clearly, he was a very disciplined person. He was very structured. His life, his days were like rituals. Every day was like a ritual for him. He started his day exercising a little bit. It's time for exercise. His 3 meals he would have in his home with my grandmother. And he would go to work in the morning. He would put on his tie, his jacket, go to work in the morning, then come back, had lunch, take a nap. He always took a nap. And that must be a secret for living a century, okay, for living 100 years. He would take a half-hour nap and then put back his clothes and then go back to work until 6 o'clock. And then come back to work, come back to the house, have dinner, be with his family. But he would make time to come and visit and to spend time. Every weekend was for his family. So he was a family person for sure, but he was always reading, always studying as well. And then he would also always be going to to travel around the country, to poor communities where he could actually see patients with these endemic diseases. And then he would also have to be traveling to other countries to go and present his work at congresses, at conferences around the world, or to go and receive a prize in Switzerland or the US. He was named public health hero by the WHO, by the World Health Organization. I mean, he was always so busy, and he published hundreds of papers. So he also had to be writing all the time and reading and studying. So this was really an extraordinary human being. It's an extraordinary human being. But the most important thing, Art, that we learned from him was his humbleness and his way of living that was so simple. He said, I don't need a lot to be happy. I need simple things to be happy. And so for me, growing up with him or next to him or close to him was really the biggest influence that I had in my life. That was really my north, my role model, my example, but also really because of so much love that he would give me, and my grandmother, of course. So I did go to his lab many, many times. My high school thesis was on leishmaniasis, which I did at his lab. So I used to go to the animal facility and, to see the animals that were being part of these preclinical studies in leishmaniasis, and how that was helping so much to develop the leishmaniasis treatment that was being distributed around Venezuela free of cost to the patient. So leishmaniasis is an endemic disease. There is still leishmaniasis, the philosophy of my grandfather's treatments and his developments were that they were free of cost to the patient because they have no resources, right, to access these treatments, and they have the right to access medical treatment. So that is the philosophy that guides JCWO. That is the philosophy that guides our work. We need to develop accessible and effective treatments, but they need to be accessible for most patients. Most patients around the world don't have the resources to access high cost treatments. So this is the probably one of the main characteristics that we have on this immunotherapy that we are developing. Art, I also want to mention that we are also helping in other ways. We have another program that is very important. We are doing molecular diagnostics in other types of cancers that affect, for example, children, such as leukemia. So we provide this free of cost to the patient, precise and specific diagnosis that allows the doctor, the medical doctor, to decide on the best treatment protocol for that specific patient based on this test. So that is improving the quality of life of these patients that we are diagnosing, and also it's increasing the survival rate in this population that we are diagnosing here in Venezuela.
Tell me about the medical condition of people in Venezuela. Are they able to generally access quality health care? Are there many people who are lacking access? What's the data say about access to health care in Venezuela?
Access to healthcare is limited. There are hospitals across the country that are very important, emblematic health institutions, but many of them lack the resources to perform, for example, the molecular-based tests, or basic items that they need to treat people. So I think that it is important to join efforts with these health institutions, with other organizations, and with the private sector, because we all need to join efforts to improve, I think, that public health. I think it's something that all actors in society should be interested and should be participating in this effort. So I think that by doing this, and I can see it through the work that we're doing, it works. It helps a lot of people.
So who are some of the collaborators that JCWO has now? Who are you collaborating with?
We have hundreds of companies that are helping us, that are Venezuelan companies and that are also multinational companies from all sectors of society. I mean, we have donors that give us liquid funds, so that we can actually acquire the items that we need, the lab equipment, the reagents that we need. And they can be companies such as, for example, one company that helps us is Chevron. Chevron has been helping us through their social responsibility program, and their funding has been very important for us to reach more, to do more, to be able to acquire more. But Chevron is obviously it's a multinational company, but you also have little companies, smaller donors, but that what they give us is what they can give us, but that is so important for the work that we do. So when you add everything together, then you have the resources and you have the support that you need to do the work, right? To develop the work. So we have from very small companies to large companies in the US that support us. Besides Chevron, we have DLA Piper, who is a legal firm, very renowned legal firm, Baker McKenzie, Then we have Repsol, which is another oil company based in Spain. Microsoft. I mean, we have many companies from Venezuelan and from around the world that believe in this cause and that are helping in any way that they can with what they can. But all of that together is what really allows us to, to push this effort, this big effort that we're doing.
Fantastic. I can see you're a real powerhouse, and it would be very difficult for someone to say no to you. And that's the whole issue of fundraising is, somewhat about making the right case for funding, which obviously you have, given the challenges that you see in Venezuela with healthcare and around this particular interdiction that you're coming up with here. But it's also the trust and the will of people involved in those organizations who are trying to make their dreams a reality. And I know that it would be very difficult for anyone who comes across your influence to say, I think we'll pass. I know some do, obviously, lots do. But on the other hand, you have a charisma about you. And I think that many of us could also carry that same spirit and charisma into our fundraising and into our collaborations so that people can get a feel for our passion and how committed we are to seeing a project through. So I just wanted to hold that up.
Thank you, Art.
Now, you obviously have made a commitment here for a long term, and you have your own life to lead in Venezuela. And you mentioned how your grandfather was able to balance a whole host of things and still be a highly productive human being. How are you learning to balance yourself? How are you learning to take some of the lessons that you learned from him? Or is it simply a function of the world being very different now, where it's very difficult to do or live a life in the fashion that he did?
Well, that's also a good point. But I am still learning, Art. I had my first daughter, my first child, a little less than 3 years ago. So now I'm learning how to balance really family, work, health, travel, etc. And my grandfather had 4 children, and and he did it really well. He exercised, he ate healthy, he traveled, he did everything. So I'm still learning, and I think I need to improve on that. But I do consider myself a workaholic for sure. I I I I have to be honest. I've always been very um I it's like I really give myself completely to whatever I'm dedicating myself to. So it's actually been tough for me now that I have a daughter, a baby, to actually administer that time a lot better and not just be working 24/7, because that's what I used to do. And I think that now, obviously, raising my child is an amazing opportunity that I have. It's an amazing thing that happened in my life, and I definitely have to be present in her life, mainly though in these first years, right? In her first years, it's so important. It's crucial to be there with her.
What has being a mother taught you? Because
Patience,
there are so many other women, obviously, out here who are balancing
of
creating
course.
social good, working in the work environment, and still managing a family. What have you learned in this first year?
That we do have to dedicate time to our children since they're born, and especially in those early years, because that time is never going to come back, and that is crucial.
What has she taught you?
Well, that she needs me, that I have to spend time with her, that that I have to be, she asks, what are you doing? She talks about, I've taken her to work. I've taken her to the lab. She's held, she's gone into the animal facility to see, the work. And she's very curious. I do want to show her that, the work and all the wonderful things that we're doing, because I do want her to also be inspired one day and, of all the work that we're doing. But what she's taught me is better organization, better structure. Um, that it is so important to give our kids time, to dedicate time for them, family values, both parents to be present in their lives. It's it's just fundamental. It's crucial. It's critical. I really think it makes the whole difference in them. I will share a personal experience, Art. My parents got divorced when I was little, and it was very tough. It was extremely tough. I don't think I grew up with both my parents there all the time. Actually, my grandparents took that role because my parents weren't present all the time when I was growing up. And it was a big conflict, the divorce. They were tough years. So I know that how critical it is for parents to be there for their child. And I think that we all know that by now, even science says we have to be there and raise them and support them and give them, have them that so that they can feel safe and secure with us.
You've got a lot on your plate. You've got a lot on your plate. You need another plate, given everything you're trying to do. I
Yes.
mean, I'm just listening to your story with a high degree of interest because I see so many other people in you. I see people who are either taking care of their grandparents in different ways or their parents, and in your case, trying to live out a legacy of
Yes.
your grandfather. I see people who are bouncing back from being without their own parents and who are
Mhm.
now trying to make sense of their lives having lived it without parents. I
Mhm.
see people who've gotten great educations like you have at Dickinson College and started a great career and who are now beginning to see that it's important to also give back to society. I see people who are beginning their own families and trying to rationalize their time so that they can give it to the world and community and make sure that they're taking care of home at the same time. I see people who are women who are in the leading roles as our society begins to recognize the power and influence and strength of women across the globe. I see people who understand that if we're going to have a bright future, it's all about managing all of these different roles that we have to play in order to bring this world to a better place. So, and there's so many things that I'm hearing in your story, and I'm letting you go on because as I summarize what I'm hearing, I know that there are so many people out there who are nodding their heads and saying, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me, that we should make sure that they appreciate that they're not alone. So I want to thank you really for opening up the way you have and sharing with us that while you're this woman who is taking on this enormous responsibility to create a way for people to overcome cancer, that you're also a woman who's managing and raising a family and taking care. I hope you begin to take care of yourself because burnout is real. Burnout is real. And you have to find, I hope you find time for yourself. You say you're learning, life is all about learning. I hope you find that balance that you need to do all of these things and to do it for a long period because that's the other thing. Things don't change overnight. It takes time. You've been working on this one thing for the last 10 years or more. It takes time. And in order to be there to see it through, we have to take care of ourselves too. So I just wanted to make sure that I could summarize in a way that we could make sense of everything that you said so eloquently.
Thank you, Art, for those amazing words. They mean a lot, and I'm so happy that you think that this story can also be useful for other people. And you know, I am so happy to be sharing really my experience here with you. Um, uh, and yes, for sure, I there's a lot going forward to do. I will continue to balance my time and my activities. Um, I have been able to build a wonderful team, Art, and I think that this is something that we have to highlight because Dr. Convit always said that collective efforts are much more important and will go further than individual efforts. And we truly believe this at JCWO. We believe in collective efforts, in bringing people together, wonderful people together for a mission, for an objective. So I have been able throughout these years and before my daughter was born, I had the opportunity to build a wonderful team, not just in Venezuela, but also internationally. We have many people that are part of our team. They're not all paid. Many of them are at honorem. You know, they donate their time to help us. And so, and I think that that has also been key to building an amazing team in many, you know, around the globe, so that we can actually make this, you know, make this dream true. So so by building this wonderful team, I have been able to count on many people that believe in this project, that also feel passionate about this, that want to you know, to benefit people, to work for Venezuela, to work for cancer patients, not just in Venezuela, but for cancer patients around the world. You know, everybody has a relative or a friend that has suffered from cancer or that has maybe died from cancer. Right now, I can tell you, I have many relatives with cancer, different types of cancer, and even young people. And you know, so I think that we all know how important it is to, you know, to put all of our effort into this work, and to believe that we can in the future help many people. So that's our drive. That's our drive. The people, the common good, the common good.
Well, look, Anna, we could go on, but I think we're out of time now, unfortunately.
He
But I
went
just
by
wanted
fast.
to, I went by fast. I just wanted to thank you for doing this and for what you're doing. And to all of those of you who are listening to this podcast, it's a weekly show. And you can see a new episode every Tuesday. And I hope you'll subscribe to the show. If you want to support the podcast, you can do that by going to give.org and making a donation, and we would put it to great use. So thank you for listening, and I hope we'll see you back here next week.
You've just listened to the Heart of Giving podcast with Art Taylor. Be sure to tune in next time for a brand new episode. To listen to our other interviews, visit heartgiving.podbean.com. That's heartgiving.podbean.com. Subscribe to our show on major podcast platforms. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are the views and opinions of the guests, not those of the BBB Wise Giving Alliance or program affiliates. This podcast is for information and educational purposes only and is copyrighted with all rights reserved. This podcast is protected by Podbean's terms of service.